Thanks for joining me, Nutnfancy here again in Northern California. It is a beautiful afternoon, about 75 degrees. There is a bit of a wind kicking up now and again. You'll hear that. I apologize. Sun is shining, not a cloud in the sky. I find myself in one of the shoreline bay parks near the San Francisco Bay Area. Beautiful, beautiful day. Lots of people here having a good time, making the most of this beautiful day. Some bird watchers over there on the pier. Joggers on the trail. Families bicycling. People walking their dogs. I have a resident population of geese in this park too. It's kind of fun. Kind of messy too. Families over in the picnic area hanging out. And again, just making the most of a beautiful afternoon and spending time together. I'm not really here to talk about that though. I'm not here to talk about the parks. I'm here to talk about what makes it possible. What makes these people's experiences here today possible. In the Nutnfancy project, I've referred to it coming up on a year now as ROL, or rule of law. And basically that means that society is in complete operation. That there are police services available, law enforcement is operational. You know, there's gasoline at the gas stations. There's food on supermarket shelves. There's no big natural disasters that would disrupt the supply of those items. You know, and there's just, everything's working the way it should be working in society. It's as you've probably known it most of your life. ROL. That's exactly what makes the visits to this park today possible. Because people can come to the park and not have to worry about being assaulted, being killed, being attacked, raped, you know, mugged, robbed, all the things that probably will happen without ROL. And I'm going to talk about some of those factors in a couple of videos as I go along here in the Nutnfancy project. And I apologize it's taking me so long to get to this, but this is a big subject. It's a serious subject. And for people just tuning into the Nutnfancy project, it is a theme that I've referred to many times in the review of my tactical gear and my outdoor gear, and I'll continue to do so. And this will be a foundational video. First off, I want to say that a lot of people may find this video and go, well, I think, you know, he's preaching gloom and doom. You know, I don't think we'll ever have anything to worry about. I think we live in a realm of artificial security, at least in the United States of America, that we have so long enjoyed the rule of law, or as I call it, ROL, that it becomes second nature to us. We think that it will always be there, and that it is unthinkable to a lot of people that we would ever lose ROL. And they say, well, I just don't ever see that happen. You know, they'll always take care of us. Well, really? That's what you think? I hope you're right. I really do. And let me set a couple ground rules when I talk about ROL, or also WROL, or without rule of law. First off, I don't want to set myself as some type of prophet that I'm looking in the future and I'm saying, hey, these things are going to happen. I know the future. That is not my intention, and nor do I seek to set myself up that way. I have some thoughts on this subject. You know, I have a basic understanding of the history of mankind. I have a really good understanding on, I feel, human nature and what has transpired in the past and how some evil elements of society will behave without ROL. It's fact. I don't think that's debatable. But I'm not here to preach doom and gloom. In fact, the whole theme of this particular video is quite the opposite. It is don't hasten the day. You know, take advantage of ROL, just like these people in the park are doing. Take advantage of it. You know, they're in the Nutnfancy project. Hopefully you were able to glean from my videos that I am pretty constitutionally aware, that I'm a huge supporter of our document, which makes this country possible, the freedoms therein, and I'm sworn to protect it from both enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will do so, as will thousands like me. No doubt. A lot of the subscribers watching will say, hey, it's our freedoms and the loss of these freedoms which may throw us into WROL, that we become so constrained and dominated by a totalitarian type government that maybe we have to fix it. Nutnfancy says be real careful. Be real careful traveling down that road because I think a lot of people really do not understand the implications of WROL, or again, without rule of law, what it means. Other people call it different things, but that's what I call it because I think it's a very accurate way to describe what's going to go on in our society. And we need to understand its implications. So how is WROL going to come about? Again, I'm not the end-all expert. I know I say that a lot, but these are just some thoughts that I have. And I have experienced some of it in my own life. But I think the cessation of fuel, electricity, food deliveries, any one of those could bring about some implications of WROL, to be honest. And I've experienced some of it. We lived in an area where we lost electricity in our neighborhood for 2 weeks. Throughout the city, it was sometimes even longer. In outlying areas, they had a loss of electricity for, I forget, like three or more weeks. And I saw some things in that scenario alone that were shocking. That people are so used to having electricity and all the conveniences that come along with that they were freaking out. As utility trucks were attempting to put electricity, restore the electrical lines, which have been torn down, people were actually taking pot shots at the linemen that were working with 22s. They were shooting the trucks up. They were so angry that perhaps they were restoring the electricity to one neighborhood as opposed to their own. They decided to go attack the very people that were trying to help them. Okay? This is a good insight in what WROL will be like, and a little bit of how some people behave when situations become desperate. Loss of gasoline. What would happen in the United States of America if we have no gasoline being delivered? That alone could bring about WROL. I kid you not. Because then you don't have food deliveries. People can't get to work. Things become desperate. And without food, you want to see desperate? You watch what happens when no food's being delivered. Heck, not everywhere around the world, not just the U.S. So yeah, the implications of WROL are extremely serious. I think they're taken rather lightly too, due to some movies and some video games are out there that kind of paint a picture of, hey, it's going to be kind of adventurous, it's going to be kind of fun, we'll have our guns, we'll be able to protect ourselves, we'll pop some rounds, and overall we'll be able to do whatever we want. It'll be kind of like, party time. And I think a lot of the younger generation desperately certainly thinks that about WROL. And I'm here to tell you that is extremely dangerous. It's a dangerous way to think of it. WROL means anarchy. The societal engine is busted. There is no law enforcement to come help you. If you're in a park like these good people are today, and you get attacked, there's no 911 to call. There's no one to help you, to come and rescue you. You injure yourself, you break a leg, you have a compound fracture. It's all you and your preparations that are going to make the difference between you living and you dying. And in WROL, I'll tell you right now, and here comes the honest truth, there will be a lot of people dying. All the people who need ongoing medical care, they probably won't make it. Again, I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to look into the future. I'm just telling you the way I think it's going to play out. And that's an honest and brutal fact. That the situation will become so desperate, and what is left of emergency services will be so overwhelmed, they just won't be able to cope with the amount of things that will be going on. And now's the time that you make arrangements for your alternate lifestyle in WROL, because that's what it's going to be. Right now, with the societal engine working, life is good. I mean, you can go to the store, buy food. You can call 911, have the police come and help you. If you have some, granted, they'll usually get there too late, but at least you have something. But life is good. When you roll in, no pun intended, roll into WROL, you're back in the 1700s, dude. You're homesteading. It's all up to you. All the things that people did a century ago or 2 centuries ago, you're going to have to start doing. And that body of knowledge, in a large degree, has been lost. And that's one reason why you see in the Nutnfancy project, I like getting out in the woods. I like practicing those survival skills. I like living without electricity, roughing it and toughing it so I can accustom myself to such situations. Because if you've done that and then you roll into that situation, you're like, yeah, I've been there, done it. It's no big deal. I'm used to it, you know? And it's not, you know, the end of the world, so to speak. You can just press on and do it. I'm all for that. But if you're thrust back in, you know, to that situation, it's all up to you for your food, you know? Are you growing your own food now? Do you have a food storage? You know, how about electricity? Do you have a way on your property right now to have an alternate source of energy? You know? So if you're homesteading in WROL, expect to expend a lot of energy in just meeting the necessities of life. In obtaining food, you know, meeting your energy needs, waste disposal. You ever thought of that? That's all up to you, because those services are gone too. And also in your defense of your homestead. You know, since 911 is non-functional, law enforcement is non-functional, expect the evil elements of society to take advantage of the situation. You know, and this has again been proven in history. Look at Katrina. What happened in Katrina during the time when there was no law enforcement functioning? What happened in the Rodney King Riots in 1992? You know, the evil elements of society, some of which have get even mentality, when there's no repercussion of their behavior, expect some bad things. You know, they're going to go after the man maybe and exact some revenge, and in their minds they're rationalized to do it. You know, killing, raping, pillaging, no big deal. You know, in their minds they can rationalize that, saying that you deserve it. You know, maybe you have a lifestyle that's better than theirs, and now in WROL, it's time to get even, and there's no one to punish them for doing so. So yeah, I could see that element totally taking control, and it has in the past, and it probably will in the future as well. Also, economic collapse that could easily bring about WROL, the complete devaluation of the dollar, rampant inflation, any number of these things could bring about, you know, the breakdown of the societal engine. And that's kind of how I think of it. You know, just like the engine in your car has a lot of different components which operate in conjunction with one another to provide propulsion to your automobile. And this motor, which powers society, we've had in operation for a long time. And again, it lulls us into that false sense of security that that engine's always going to be working. And also, it doesn't mean the engine is perfect. You know, and I want to speak to that too. I mean, there are certain things, and always have been, that are wrong with society, especially if you're a constitutionalist and you're big on the Constitution and the freedoms that it recognizes. It doesn't give you, it recognizes them. I'm with that. There are problems, but I am a big advocate of working through the system as much as you possibly can. You know, write your congressman, write your representative, be politically active, and work through the mechanization that is there to affect change. And society will always have problems. You know, nothing's ever going to be perfect. And I would be very careful about recommending that we just unbolt the engine and throw it into the bay and start walking. Because if you're advocating civil war to rectify the loss of freedoms, that's what you're saying. It's like, I'm willing to go into WROL to make this happen. Again, I'm no prophet or seer, or I'm just some goofball making videos. However, you know, I have kind of an understanding about the implications of things. I've been on this earth long enough to know that, and it's a very serious thing. If you're going to launch into anarchy, be prepared for the consequences. I mean, it's murder, rape, you know, theft of all kinds, sorts and descriptions. That stuff will be there on a level that's been heretofore unknown, at least in the U.S. And it will blow people's minds, and they will not be able to function. Most people are going to be caught so mentally unprepared, they're going to just cease to function. They won't be able to cope. They won't be able to understand what's going on. So to those radical groups that say, hey, now's the time, you know, and I even hate to say the words, but for lack of a better word, that we need to do a civil war, be careful, man. I'm not for that. I think the apple will drop from the tree all by itself. You know, I don't think that anybody's going to have to engage in anything like that, and I don't recommend it. You know, I don't. The implications are too serious and widespread in the U.S. and actually the world over for us to go in that. life is going to be more complicated under WROL. That's a given. And I think it'll blow a lot of people away. Exactly how complicated, for the very reasons I just said. Therefore, make the most of ROL that we have right now, and disregard all the gloom and doom you hear right now. And I hope you don't take this video as gloom and doom. That's not what my purpose. In fact, it's quite the opposite. My purpose is to advocate you not hastening the day for WROL. Again, when I say the apple will fall from the tree under its own weight, I think WROL will happen on its own. And unfortunately, I think we will see the day in our lifetime when it happens. And I think it will be long term. I don't think it's going to be short term. I don't think it's going to be a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months. I think it'll be longer than that, maybe a year or so, maybe even longer. I don't know. I don't know the future. I do know that you've got to maximize your time while things are good. And right now, overall, things are pretty darn good. Can you still go to, the show with your family and go see a movie? Yeah, you can. Can you walk in the park like we are here in this beautiful park and not get, mugged? Generally speaking, yes, you can. You have the internet. You have amazing entertainment options. You have the ability in today's society to make or break yourself. You have opportunities to excel economically, at least in the U.S., that if you want to make a business, even now, as of March 2009, if you want to make a business, you can still succeed at that business because the engine of society is operational. It's still working, and take advantage of it. Time is short, and time can be stolen from you at any opportunity, and it doesn't take WROL for that to happen. It can happen to you on a personal basis. You could die tomorrow. Your wife, your son, your daughter, for some accident and some tragedy, you could die tomorrow. The time is short, and that's why you've seen as a thread running through the Nutnfancy videos of me saying take advantage of time. Use it wisely. Invest it. Just don't spend it. Invest it. Invest it in your family and your friends so that you can look back and you can say, with that time I did this. I spent my time wisely. We went to the park that day. We had a great time. We had a picnic. We laughed. We flew kites. We rode our bicycles. And I spent time with my family. And that's what I want to advocate with this video, of taking advantage of ROL, or rule of law, that we have it. And just lay in the sunshine and soak it all in and make good memories. But that while you're doing that, I don't think it's extreme. I don't think it's radical. I don't think it's, foolish to make preparations for situations that might come in the future without rule of law. In fact, I think it's wise that you would make arrangements for that situation. Because especially if you're the family head, being the male member of your family, in my opinion, that's your job. Your job is to provide for the food and the protection and all the temporal needs of your family. That's your job. And are you able to do that if ROL happens? Or do you just throw your hands up and go, you know what? I'm completely incapable of handling this situation, family. You're on your own. And then you're just at the whims of whatever is the strongest element of society at that time. And it probably will be evil in nature. And you may have to band together as a small village or as a neighborhood to protect yourselves. And I may talk to that in the future too. Some considerations you might want to think about in doing that. And speaking of the village, and for lack of a better term, I want to use the term village. The village is resilient. That even in WROL, you'll see the resurgence of the village. It won't be just a bunch of people, hunkering down in their individual houses and their trailers or whatever, hoping that it all blows over. You're going to see people band together, and you're going to see people work together just like it's always been. It's always been that way. Throughout society. The reason societies exist is because it makes life easier. Because guys get together and they go, hey, you know what? How about I make the bread and you go defend the village, and then I'll give you bread for defending the village. Sounds good. That way I don't have to do both. Hey, you know what? How about I grow some carrots, you give me some of your bread, and I'll give you some of my carrots for walking the perimeter on the village. That way we can all work share. And on it goes. And everybody work shares to make life easier. That's why we are in a society, and it will resurge. You'll see that again. you know, it makes sense to have preparations for that type of situation, a bartering economy. You know, make preparations now. And again, it doesn't mean you're, you know, naked on a water tower with a 30-06 waiting for the balloon to go up. You know, you're living life. You're living a normal life. You're enjoying ROL, making memories, and having a good time with your family and friends. While you do that, you're going to make some reasonable preparations to protect your family and your friends and your neighborhood should WROL happen. And I'll tell you, Nutnfancy here, I think you're going to see it happen. You're going to see it happen. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be shocking to everybody, except you. Because you've mentally prepared yourself and you've had some preparations and you said, you know what? This pretty much sucks. It sucks. I'm not looking forward to this, but I'm ready to handle it and I'll get through it, and you'll be a survivor and you'll be a leader in your neighborhood and you'll be able to help lots and lots of people because you've made preparations, and they're going to look to you for leadership of how to get through it. And I advocate, and this is how I want to end the video, of being good. You know, be good in ROL or WROL. And being good will be at a premium when society goes belly up, because you'll see a lot of people being not good, you know, doing things that are just plain bad and selfish and hurtful to others. And I would like to advocate you being an agent for good in all situations, of being thoughtful and helpful and kind to others. And that is the main foundation that I would like to have for the Nutnfancy project in ROL or WROL, because we're going to need people like you that are good and that will protect others, because don't look left, don't look right. It's you that's going to be doing it. That's about it. I might make more videos on WROL. Big old plane flying in the distance. It's a good thing. As long as planes are flying, ROL is here. Nutnfancy, thanks for tuning in. See you.